Six Flags Magic Mountain is one of the biggest amusement parks in the whole world in terms of roller coasters. This huge amusement park is part of the Six Flags chain, and Magic Mountain is home to a crazy amount of 20 total roller coasters, and that makes it the park with most roller coasters in the whole world. And in this video I'm gonna rank them all, so let's get into it. Now coming in as the first roller coaster, we got X2 made by Aerodynamics, and X2 is really one of the signature roller coasters at Magic Mountain. X2 is part of the very rare 4th dimension roller coaster model, and there are only a total of 3 4th dimension coasters in the whole world. And X2 overall features a very crazy and bizarre looking roller coaster layout with this winged seating and rotating seats. This roller coaster just flips you through intense and crazy elements such as a vertical first drop and then the Raven Thrust dive in the end. And the seats have a controlled rotation, so they create the most intense ride experience right here. X2 really pulls some strong positive G-forces, and this roller coaster can be quite rough for many people. That's why I'm gonna give X2 an S tier. X2 overall just delivers a completely out of control and bizarre ride experience, and that's why it remains one of the most intense coasters in the world. And now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got Magic Flyer made by Bradley & Kay. And I must be very honest, I haven't really heard of this manufacturer, and Magic Flyer overall is a very old and very small kiddie roller coaster that dates all the way back to 1971. And I can't really say much about this coaster. It is very small, it has some turns, a small drop, and that's it. And unfortunately I cannot ride it, I'm way too big, so that's why I'm giving Magic Flyer an F tier. Even though Magic Flyer is a small kiddie coaster, it is pretty janky and the layout doesn't do anything. Now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got Twisted Colossus made by RMC, and this coaster is overall quite unique and awesome because it duels sometimes. Twisted Colossus actually offers a blue and green track, and you got 2 lift hills, so 2 laps overall. What's most unique about this coaster is that you go through the blue and green track, but it is split into 2 parts with 2 lift hills, so that's why the coaster experience is split into 2 awesome airtime filled parts. And Twisted Colossus overall has a great pacing filled up with many airtime moments. This coaster overall just features many aggressive small airtime moments combined with awesome inversions. Coolest moment on this coaster is if the trains duel and you got this Top Gun moment with the 0G stall and airtime hill beneath it, so that's why I'm gonna give Twisted Colossus a high A tier. Twisted Colossus really packs in some great airtime moments and inversions by RMC, but unfortunately this coaster is split into 2 halves and the lift hill is very slow. Now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got Speedy Gonzales made by Zamperla, and yet again we have a very small kiddie/family roller coaster on the list. And Speedy Gonzales actually features 3 laps total, and lap by lap the pacing of the ride keeps getting increased. You start up with a shallow twisted drop, and after that you have a very sharp turn, and the lateral forces on this turn keeps getting sharper and sharper, so it's quite aggressive. I'm overall gonna give Speedy Gonzales a low E tier. This kiddie coaster features a great twisted drop and a very sharp turn, and that's pretty much it. Now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got Tatsu made by B&M, and Tatsu is part of the awesome flying roller coaster model made by the Swiss manufacturer, and I must say Tatsu must be one of the best flying roller coasters out there. This roller coaster really features a highly elevated layout on the hillside of Magic Mountain, and because of the high elevation, Tatsu really features a creepy and floaty roller coaster layout, and that's just until you hit this crazy pretzel loop inversion, and this is where the roller coaster train dives nose first down to the ground and up again. And the pretzel loop on Tatsu must be one of the most intense moments on a roller coaster, so that's why I'm gonna give this awesome flying coaster a high A tier. Most of the layout on Tatsu is highly elevated and very floaty, but the intense pretzel loop near the end of the ride really takes it up a notch. Now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got Canyon Blaster made by E&F Miller, and this is where we quickly move back to the kiddie/family roller coasters. But surprisingly, Canyon Blaster actually features a quite aggressive kiddie coaster layout, and most of this layout really consists of many airtime hills, and if you sit in the front row, these airtime hills can actually deliver something, so that's why I'm gonna give this kiddie coaster a high E tier. Yes, of course Canyon Blaster is a very small coaster, but it's still one of the best smaller coasters at Magic Mountain. Now coming in as the next coaster, we got Wonder Woman Flight of Courage made by RMC, and Wonder Woman is actually the newest addition to this awesome amusement park. Wonder Woman overall offers a great RMC single rail coaster layout, but this coaster isn't really as intense as the first single rail coasters out there, but that's quite fine for me because the other ones can be too intense. Wonder Woman starts out with a world-class first drop, and after that you have the typical RMC amazing airtime moments. And this single rail coaster layout also combines an awesome 0G stall and a 0G roll, and even though this coaster is a bit slow in the end, the outer bank airtime hills are still great, and that's why I'm gonna give this RMC single rail an A tier. And even though Magic Mountain's Wonder Woman isn't the most intense, it still packs some great airtime moments and inversions. Coming in as the next roller coaster, we got Roadrunner Express made by Vekoma, and this coaster is a smaller scale Vekoma Junior coaster, and it actually features one of the most traditional ride layouts made by Vekoma. In terms of ride layout, you have a shallow drop and many twists and turns. Overall, this roller coaster experience is just fine for families, and that's why I'm gonna give Roadrunner Express an E tier. Can't really say much about this coaster. It's traditional, it's for families, it's decent. And now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got Batman the Ride made by B&M, and Batman the ride is of course part of the famous B&M inverted coaster model. And these B&M inverts are really known for having quite intense layouts that really pull some strong positive G-forces. And Batman the Ride at Magic Mountain really is no exception here. This roller coaster really starts out great with a vertical loop, whippy 0G roll and yet another vertical loop. And after an awesome start, this roller coaster mainly consists of sharp turns and 2 whippy corkscrew inversions. Overall, the Batman the Ride clone layout is just awesome and filled with positive G-forces. And if you really like intense roller coasters, you have to try Batman the Ride because this coaster pulls some strong positive G-forces. That's why I'm gonna give this inverted coaster an A tier. The prototype inverted layout by B&M still hits to this day with strong positives. And on top of that, this Batman the Ride clone is actually quite smooth. Now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got Gold Rusher made by Aerodynamics. And as you just heard, this is a very old Aerodynamics mine train coaster. And what really makes this coaster decent for me is actually the landscaping. Gold Rusher actually features a decently lengthy family roller coaster layout with many sharp twists and turns. And this is actually one of the oldest operating roller coasters at Magic Mountain, so it's quite janky. Now I'm actually gonna give Gold Rusher a D tier. You have a decently lengthy mine train coaster experience with an awesome location, and I think the roughness adds to the intensity. Now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got Full Throttle made by Premier Rides. And this coaster might overall have one of the most bizarre coaster layouts out there. Overall, Full Throttle is just short and very punchy. You have a very sharp launch that flies into this very tall vertical loop with a lot of hang time, of course. Then Full Throttle also have a whippy dive loop, and this swing launch section is very weird. Then in the end, the coaster flies over the tall vertical loop and goes into an ejector airtime moment that is unfortunately trimmed at the bottom. That's why I'm gonna give Full Throttle a high B tier. Full Throttle overall has a very weird layout that breaks halfway through. The few elements this coaster actually has are very awesome. Now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got Ninja made by Aerodynamics. And overall, Ninja might be one of the more thrilling family roller coasters at Magic Mountain. And this suspended coaster by Aerodynamics really features a decently lengthy and whippy layout. And then flying low to the ground between these trees on Ninja really adds to the ride experience. But the ending of Ninja is just quite sad. The lift hill just takes you up into the station. And that's why I'm gonna give Ninja a high D tier. This is overall a great suspended family roller coaster by Aerodynamics, but the lift hill in the end is just a huge dud. Now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got Apocalypse the Ride made by GCI. Six Flags Magic Mountain's wooden coaster is really an awesome one. But the only negative thing about Apocalypse is that the ride experience really depends on the maintenance. Sometimes the ride experience can feel too bumpy and other times it's just glossy smooth. And I've only been lucky with this ride experience on this awesome GCI. Apocalypse really features a very lengthy and low to the ground wooden roller coaster layout with many sharp twists and turns and low to the ground airtime hills. All of these small airtime humps really gives great floater airtime. And except the last few twists and turns, this GCI coaster really has a great pacing. And that's why I'm gonna give Apocalypse the Ride an A tier. And for me, this coaster is very smooth, it has a great pacing, it has many floater airtime hills, it's just awesome. Now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got New Revolution made by Schwarzkopf. And this old Schwarzkopf looping coaster really has a very weird layout. And New Revolution really features many large drops. But just before all of these drops, the roller coaster train is quite slow. So I could honestly say that the pacing on New Revolution is really awful. But then we have this awesome revolutionizing vertical loop. And that's why I'm gonna give this roller coaster a low C tier. And this old Schwarzkopf really has a very weird layout with some awesome drops and an awesome vertical loop. But the pacing on this is so horrendous. Now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got West Coast Racers by Premier Rides. And West Coast Racers overall is an awesome dueling roller coaster. But let's shortly talk about the negatives. This roller coaster layout is quite short, and on top of that you have these awful comfort colors as restraints. But this dueling coaster layout actually offers some decent elements. After a quite slow launch, you have this high five / wave turn element. And it's awesome to see that this roller coaster layout intertwines with each other with inversions, airtime hills and another rolling launch. That's why I've decided to give West Coast Racers a high B tier. The overall concept of this coaster is awesome. The roller coaster layout isn't that thrilling, but it's still decent. And now coming in as the next roller coaster, we've got Scream made by B&M. And many people say that this B&M Flawless coaster is quite rough to ride. And you can really feel a decent amount of rattle on Scream, but it isn't really groundbreaking. The rattle doesn't destroy the whole ride experience. And apart from a very dull parking lot location, this roller coaster still pulls some strong positive G-forces on all the inversions. Scream just overall features your traditional looping coaster layout by B&M with just a bit of rattle. And that's why I'm gonna give this roller coaster a C tier. Scream overall offers a decent roller coaster experience, but unfortunately you have quite a rattle, and on top of that you have the parking lot experience. Now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got Riddler's Revenge made by B&M. And even though Riddler's Revenge is a stand-up roller coaster, it still offers the better ride experience compared to Scream. To be honest, this might be the best old stand-up roller coaster by B&M. Yeah, the stand-up position might be a bit awful, but the roller coaster layout is very intense. And yet again, you have the traditional inversions by B&M, but these are just very strong and filled with positive G-forces. And surprisingly, the Riddler's Revenge actually is quite smooth. That's why I'm gonna give this roller coaster a high B D tier. The overall roller coaster really offers some strong positive G-forces on the inversions, but unfortunately you have the stand-up position. Now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got Viper made by Aerodynamics, and I actually think that Viper is the only surviving mega looping coaster by Aerodynamics. This roller coaster overall is very rough and on top of that very intense. There are really people that hate this roller coaster and there are still some people that love Viper. And to reduce the roughness of Viper, this roller coaster is very trimmed. To be honest, the twisted first drop is very aggressive and this tall vertical loop is also filled with strong G-forces. And I think I'm gonna give Viper a high C tier. Viper is overall very rough and very intense, but unfortunately the trim brakes just hits too much. Now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got Superman Escape from Krypton made by Intamin. And even though this coaster has been standing but not operating for a year, I had to include it on the list. This 400 feet plus tall freefall coaster really offers a very weird experience. And together with Tower of Terror 2 at Dreamworld, this was the first roller coaster to hit 100 miles per hour. This coaster experience is quite simple. You have a powerful launch and on top of that this airtime filled experience on the freefall. And that's why I'm gonna give this freefall coaster a high B tier. This coaster is pretty much a one-trick pony with an awesome launch and then you have this freefall element with an awesome view. Now coming in as the next roller coaster, we got Goliath made by Giovanola. And yes, this is actually one of 3 operating Giovanola roller coasters in the whole world. And Goliath overall just offers a very bizarre hypercoaster layer with some dots and also some intense moments. First of all, you have a very long drawn out first drop, and after that you have a cool turnaround section with yet another awesome and big drop. But unfortunately, after a low to the ground floater airtime hill, this roller coaster comes to a complete stop. And the purpose is to reduce the intensity of the last twister section on Goliath. And yes, the last few twists and turns on this coaster are actually strong, but this huge trim brake really kills the ride experience. So that's why I'm gonna give Goliath a C tier. Goliath overall is very weird with some awesome first drop and a fast-paced airtime hill, but unfortunately after that the ride experience is just dead. This huge trim brake really kills the ride experience. And now you finally made it through the whole video. What are your thoughts about this video? Was it great? Was it bad? Let me know in the comments what you think of my rankings. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And at the end of the day, I'm always gonna say bye bye.